Good morning. Hi, Keith. Hi, Sarah. Thank you for being here. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great.
Good, good. Very good. So we've been trying to connect with each other virtually because it's very hard during the pandemic for people to kind of be alone and try to connect from home while they're trying to stay safe. And the shul is not as open as it usually is, even though we are open, at least for Minyan. And this is one of our programs or initiatives to try to connect everyone. So I guess if you can tell us a little bit about yourselves, tell us what it's like being New Yorkers in Virginia, and how you've found it here the last, what, half a dozen years or so?
Well, that's so you want me to tell you about the last 40 years of my life?
Well, whatever works.
Well, we were both born and raised in Queens, New York. We met each other we worked in the same office building, and that was in the 90s, and we just were friends for many years, and then at some point we started dating, and then we realized we wanted a religious life, and that's how we came to Orthodox Judaism. And fast forward, children, marriage, and then children, and then making the big move.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So, Sarah, I know that you were involved very interestingly in a program back in New York that did some outreach with the Hispanic community, I think. And maybe if you could speak to that a little bit, that's very interesting and not something that really exists in Virginia in terms of outreach, specifically within the Jewish Hispanic community.
So how that came to be was I had started a Rosh Chodesh group because I wanted to connect more to women of different, of different backgrounds. And in that Rosh Chodesh group, it turned out one particular friend of mine, has discovered her Judaism very late in life, and was born and raised in a South American country. And she wanted to be part of the group, but it was difficult for her as far as the language barrier. So some of us were Spanish speaking. So I decided to form another group to include just the Spanish speaking women. And so we would get together on a monthly basis. We even had a rabbi who spoke Spanish, who was from Argentina. And so he would come and, give classes and would speak to us. And, we would enjoy that because it, was a very unique experience in terms of sharing, the language and the culture and our Judaism.
So it's you guys are both volunteers in many different ways within the Jewish community, but you also have a professional side of yourselves. And if you could speak to a little bit about your entrepreneurial spirit. Both of you, I think, were involved in creating a business back in New York and have done some other kind of business-related activities. So how did you become entrepreneurs? And I know a little bit that some of it had to do with gift cards or something along those lines. And who would have thought that could be a whole business? But apparently it's a very large business. And I guess if you could talk a little bit about your business startups and that side of you as well.
So I learned about entrepreneurship because my father had a business shipping packages around the world. And at some point I started working for him, and eventually he retired. So that was my first, business ownership situation. And then after that, I did some other work, including working for TorahAnytime.com. And then we bought a business that we ran from our home that, yes, dealt with gift cards for nonprofit organizations so they could make a little profit. And then we sold that when we were coming to Virginia. And so right now I'm a business consultant and a franchise consultant, helping people do different things in business. For the franchising, it's if someone wants to get involved with franchising, there's over 4,000 franchises in America, which is the right fit for them. Everyone has different skills and different credit rating and different things they want to achieve. So we help them figure that out. That's a free service. And I also work with and for my wife in what would we kind of say medical sales, but yet we're not selling anything. We're giving stuff away. So it's kind of unusual as well.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So how many people were in this shipping business that your father founded and that you were involved with a little bit? How many people were involved with that? What kind of boxes did you ship?
So it's kind of, we had a joking pretend catchphrase for a company. We're just like Federal Express, except they do more in one day than we do all year. Because we were a small company based in Queens near the JFK airport. Most of the clients were businesses in Manhattan. Mm-hmm. And we would pick up packages from them and deliver them around the world. Wow. And that's actually how we met. There were 3 companies that shared one office space, and they all courier companies shipping packages.
Wow.
So she worked for the large company, and she got their, data entry. I was there helping my father run our company, and there were drivers, and there were people who got on the subway, and there was data entry, and there's customer service. So there was a lot of people, and and what's very unusual, besides being 3 competitors in one space, we actually helped each other. Like their customer service people would help our clients, and we have guys picking up packages for them, and they'd pick up packages for us. And so it was very highly unusual way of these companies interacting, but that's actually how we met.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So I have to ask you this question. Both of you have a son right now living in Israel, and that's very different. I know it's the first time that you've had that experience, even though thousands of children do it every year. So what has that been like to have a child abroad? How have you been able to manage or cope with that? How do you stay connected, especially during the pandemic? And what has his experience been like so far as you know?
He's enjoyed it. He's having a great time. I miss, obviously we miss him tremendously. I'm very happy that he's there. What could be better than being in our spiritual headquarters? It's a dream come true.
And how is he managing during the pandemic? What have they been doing in order to stay safe there in his yeshiva experience?
Well, they at the start, they were in groups of 6 boys. And each group of 6 boys had their own, thing. They wouldn't interact with other groups, and they had all kinds of safety features. And then after 2 weeks, and you saw that none of those 6 boys, had any symptoms, then they would merge them into groups of 12, and they did all kinds of things for safety. But you know what happened? Half the yeshiva ended up getting COVID anyway, including Yaakov. And so they put them in apparently the military takes over hotels and just makes Corona hotels. So he was put out in the desert somewhere, a Corona hotel for young men. And then there's one for, maybe young couples or for women or whatever. And because they all had it, they could all eat together and, hang out together and play together and do sports together. And he had a kind of a good time. They had parties.
So they had an outbreak, but everybody's okay. Is that?
Yeah, he lost his smell for a little while, and he he didn't feel so great for a couple of days, but it was very mild.
Mm-hmm. That must have been very nerve-wracking, but I'm happy to hear that everybody's doing okay. So if we pivot a little bit, both of you have volunteered a lot in various capacities. What have been some of the more enjoyable experiences volunteering that you've had? Whether it's here in Richmond or New York, I'm more interested in Richmond, but as I'm sure some of our audience probably is as well. But what kind of volunteer opportunities have you been involved in that have spoken to you? And what motivated you to get involved?
So one of the things that I did right away was because it happened to be our kids played chess in New York, and Rabbi Bart and his children played chess. And of course, Yaakov and Beryl in the same grade, and Gabrielle and Aaron Bart are in the same grade. So, they hung out a lot and they played chess against each other. And I said, how about I start a chess club at RTA? So boom, I volunteered. And for every single year that we've been here, except for, this pandemic, can't do it. We've had a chess club at RTA, and it's been very nice. The kids play and they learn. And that was a very rewarding thing. I also was a board member at RTA for one term, 2 years. That was good. We love the food festival. The whole family gets involved. Nathaniel, would bus tables and take the trays. Eliana was in the youth group. She's still too young, but we have meals there and support it, and we would volunteer. So that was all good.
And Sarah, what about you?
So I just, in terms of motivation, you asked what motivated us. So for me, it's always been a universal approach to it in terms of, being that I didn't come from Judaism. I chose Judaism, so I had a lot of help in the Jewish community in New York in terms of, being brought in, for meals and for sleeping and for anything I needed in terms of being re-raised and recreated as a Jew. So I have tremendous hakaras hatov for the Jewish community, at large throughout the world, just for that.
And just for audience, that hakaras hatov means gratitude. So now, Keith, you mentioned chess, and I guess why did your kids gravitate towards chess, and why do you think that their interest, their mind, kind of went in that direction in terms of your children getting so involved in that activity?
Well, it's interesting. Me and my brother and father played chess as kids and whatever, but that was, 20, 30 years went by, and I hadn't played chess for a long time. It's not like I played it all the time, so it was a natural thing. Just one day, I just started teaching them. I can't remember exactly why. It seemed like a nice thing. We had a chess set, and they all were pretty good at it. And they grew. I can remember because when someone's starting something new, I could be doing 100 different activities at once and still easily beat them. Even if I didn't notice something and they took a good piece of mine, good, I could still beat them. But then they got better and better and better. Then they started beating me. And so I was like, this is great. And then we found out that there's such a thing as chess tournaments. There's a lot of chess tournaments in New York, and we would enroll in some, and they did pretty well. They won some of them. They didn't win them all, but they won a few. And they just had fun going. It was a nice family activity. And then it was not exactly, when it happened, I didn't consider this volunteering, but technically I guess it would be. At our local shul, I just said, on Shabbos afternoon, you know what? I'll bring some chess boards and the kids could play a little bit before Mincha or between Mincha and Marav, just whatever. And that became a club. And it was like the chess club or the game club, because then not everyone wanted to play chess. But I gave chess lessons to them. But then we brought other games too. And it was a nice Shabbos afternoon activity.
Very nice. Very nice. Now, Sarah, you spoke about how people in the Jewish community kind of helped you along in your journey. And I know that you had a good experience going to Israel a number of years ago, leading one of our trips. We led a trip. And I guess if you could kind of speak to the Jewish Women's Renaissance Project and what that opportunity presented to you, but even more importantly, what kind of relationships you were able to build locally in Richmond from doing that.
For me, it was a tremendous experience in terms of being able to validate our whole lifestyle and how beautiful and special it is, and to be able to appreciate the influence that we have over our homes and creating our future generations. So it was a magnificent experience. I recommend it to any Jewish woman who wants to get more meaning out of her Judaism. The relationships, since we've arrived in New York, we're very involved as volunteers because we also like to get to know other people. And so it was great to be able to, form relationships, deeper relationships, more meaningful relationships, outside of just seeing people in the synagogue.
Mm-hmm. And I know now your children are not part of this conversation right now, but if you could speak for them, and maybe you know what they would say, what do you think they like most about Richmond, Virginia? What do they like most about the Richmond Jewish community or Richmond as a city?
Well, it's funny because we lived in New York, we lived in Queens, which has many, many Jews, many Orthodox Jews, and a lot of amenities. But in our little area, we weren't in Kew Garden Hills or Kew Gardens or the Five Towns, which has so many. So on our block, it was around the block, we had one person, one family. But here we have, especially on our block, we have families all over the place, and they could just walk to them and and they have a lot of friends. That was a concern moving here. Oh, will we have any friends? So yes, they'll have friends. They also enjoy the smaller classes. You get more, one-on-one attention, and you form tighter bonds with your friends. So they like it. They like the nature. They like the big backyard. We had a small, typical 40 by 100 property in Queens, and so now they have a gigantic backyard.
Mm-hmm.
Now some people think in Queens there's no grass or trees. No, there's grass and trees in Queens, but not Manhattan. But compared to here, there's more here.
Right. Now, so both of you decided to enroll your children in the local Jewish day school, the Redland Torah Academy.
Mm-hmm.
And what has that experience been like? What would you say to parents who would consider enrolling their child in the local day school? How could you describe the day school from a parent's perspective so far in terms of your family's relationship with RTA?
I'm very happy with the school. I mean, I think that the school plays an integral role in raising our children, not just, raising them in their spirituality and, helping them build their souls as well as their intellect. I'm very happy there. That's, I know the teachers. One of the things we like about the community is that the teachers, many of the teachers are part of the shul, of RTA, of KBI, and they come over for a Shabbos meal. We know who they are,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a very tight knit relationship that way. So we like that. We
Mm-hmm.
like to know who the teachers are,
Right.
not just seeing them once in a while like we did in New York, but just
Right.
who they really are and knowing their families, their children.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point.
Just the other day, Eliana was looking through an old photo album of my wife's, and in the class picture, she could not believe that there was about 30 students in the class. How can you? And she was like, "How can someone teach with 30 students in the class?"
That's a good point. Yeah, it's true. In some other communities, you don't have that level of kind of personal knowledge within the school. Now, both of you are you're Northerners, like me, except my father was born in Mississippi. But both of you are New Yorkers.
Mhm.
I'll tell that my father was born on a base. Story for another time. But
Wow.
he's a New Yorker, but he was born on an army base at the end of World War II. Anyways, family, what does your family think of your being here? What you have family members? They said, "What are you doing? You're moving to Virginia. What's in? I know the way New Yorkers think that they're the center of the world. I spent time living." So what do your family members have to say about your decision coming to visit here? And what do they say? What do they think?
Well, you should know that. You do know that my mother-in-law moved with us, and so first she lived with us, and then she found a nice place to live, a nice apartment at 5100 Monument, the tall
Mhm.
building. So she's very happy there. And when I told my father that we're moving, he said, "Oh, my grandchildren. Oh, I'll miss them." And I said, "Hey, I'm gonna save a lot of money by moving there." "Well, son, have a great time. I'll visit you."
There you go. There you go. Yeah, it's easier quality of living or lifestyle for sure in many ways. Now, both of you are preparing for a bar mitzvah. For Nathaniel's bar mitzvah is coming up, and we're in the middle of a pandemic, like so many families, having to kind of navigate the challenges of having a family simcha and celebration during the pandemic. What are your thoughts about this bar mitzvah that's on the horizon coming up in the next few weeks, and helping your son trying to celebrate this milestone during a challenging time?
Well, I think it reminds you that the important part is not the party. It's the actual coming of age and turning 12 for a girl, 13 for a boy. And that's what's really the most important. That the other things, it's nice. Hey, it's nice to party. It's nice to celebrate. It's nice to be together. And everyone appreciates that. But since you can't do what you normally would do, you have to get a little creative. We have a number of ideas. We'll see which ones play out. But there's only so many things you could possibly do because you cannot have a shul-wide, quote unquote, celebration. So it makes you appreciate the importance of the actual, like he's going to, read from the Torah, and accept his responsibilities as a young man, a young Jewish man, and that's really what's really important.
Okay. Any kind of final remarks? Any kind of final thoughts? You want to give a shout out to Nathaniel Any invite you to say whatever you like.
Hmm.
Conclude our conversation.
Let's see what Mrs. Rakofsky has to say.
Well, I just want to, I miss everyone. I appreciate, being here, being healthy. I think, I think this time really shows us that we need to be, just appreciative and grateful for everyone and everything, and nothing should go unnoticed. Just, live life and enjoy being alive. Be passionate, be new, be fresh. Just enjoy life, because this situation is teaching us that you shouldn't take anything for granted.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, thank you both very much, and wish you both well. Thank you for taking the time, and hope to see you guys soon. Everyone soon.
Yep.
Us too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.